Calvin T. Mann, leading EMIY, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good day, good people. This is Heather Heteru. I am sitting in for Calvin T. Mann. He's going to be joining us probably in the next few minutes. But I want to first thank our amazing engineer, Monique, who is behind the scenes making sure that this show, our Put Your Family First EMIY TV podcast, is alive and kicking today in the midst of the coolness of the day and the weather. So we have a lovely Michigan spring today. It started out with lots of sunshine, and then it faded into the food for our flowers, trees, and our grass to thrive this spring. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about our topic today and our guest in the studio. Our topic today is the journey of manhood, and our guest is John Qualm. I've been trying to get his name right so I don't butcher his name, because sometimes, you kind of want to pronounce it like you see it. And so his last name is spelled Qualm. So his name is John Qualm, and I want you to meet this amazing man, and we are going to talk about his journey into manhood. He is an amazing person, an inspiring person, and you're going to be inspired by his story as much as I am. He is an artist. He's a father. He's going to share a little bit about his fatherhood story, both his father and being one. We're going to talk about his health and wellness programs. We're going to talk about his art, and we're going to talk about his journey, which is an amazing journey that spans a number of years. I'm going to let him tell you how many, because if you saw him, you would never believe it. And if you saw some of the things that happened in his lifetime, you wouldn't believe that one person could have such an amazing and full and rich lifetime. So I am happy to be here in the studio with not just an amazing man, but my cousin, who I learned today is a product of Detroit and New York, respectively. So we're going to talk a little bit about that journey and stay with us as we pivot back and forth into these different cultures that he has opportunities to be a part of. So, John, thank you and welcome today.
Hey. Thanks, Shelley.
So I want to talk a little bit about your journey into manhood, but I want to kind of frame it, because it's so much that's a part of it, and some themes that came out in our conversation earlier that were part of the kind of the influences underneath your journey. So one of the things that I noticed that you talked about in the journey was a lot of reading. You talked about books that you read that inspired you when you were younger and growing up, and kind of forming who you were becoming and how it influenced you. I want you to talk a little bit about that, and some of those books and some of those authors and some of the writers that had impacted you during that time. And I do want you to talk about kind of your beginnings in Detroit, and then how you kind of made that transition to New York, and then back to Detroit and the different places in New York. So if you don't mind sharing the story, tell us about you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to make it easy for the people in the audience. Most people, they don't call me John Qualm. They call me John Q.
Okay.
That simplifies things a little bit. And I was born here in Detroit, and had pretty much same type of life back during the 50s, like Leave It to Beaver, cutting the lawn and water and all that. But then everything changed, and my pops used to take me fishing, and we'd go out to the Detroit River, and we'd throw a line in and try our luck out there. He was big into fishing, and he was a little impatient with me because I'd throw the line in and pull it out and then throw it back in and then pull it back out again. But it was a different time. It was a different time, and I used to. I was talking with my cousin about a couple of weeks ago, And she said, "Don't you remember you used to take me to school?" And the school was something like about 2 miles away. And I just remember being taken to elementary school one time by my parents, and the rest of the time we did it on our own. Mm. And in New York, and I'm not too sure about Detroit, the parents are all over the place at the schools to pick up the kids. So the kids don't have the same type of freedoms that we had. I mean, you got a lot of good stuff. I mean, you can see stuff on the cell phone, but we had to invent like a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And it used to keep us really busy. And it helped to build character, and a lot of it. And the family structure was different. You didn't say anything bad to your mom or your aunt because you had uncles that would straighten you out real quick.
Right, right.
And you just stayed away, and you heard a lot of, "This is grown folk stuff. You don't want to get into this."
Right, for sure.
Yeah, but it was a fun childhood, running around and getting into things, and a lot different than now. But it was really good. Let's see.
So talk about kind of your. So talk about the schools that you went to. Was it a difference between going to school here in Detroit? And I know that you went to Northwestern High School here in Detroit. Yeah. And talk about the experience that you had in high school and kind of the differences that you found.
Okay. I went to a school. I don't even think the school exists anymore. It was Pattongill. It was in Detroit. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of really, you get your lunch fixed, and sometimes we come home for lunch and go back. That was really cool. But then I went, when I was 10, I went to New York. And the first thing that I did when I got into New York was you got into a fight. And of course, the guy who I got into a fight with, we became the best of friends and went all over the place. And we chased women and young girls at the time, and women later. It was a really good time. Let's see. It was also a changing time because it wasn't until like I was around 15 or 16 years old. This is when the information used to come out about just what black people did. You never heard about Richard Wright or Ralph Ellison or anything. Martin Luther King was the new thing coming up right after the Kennedy assassination. And all of a sudden, the floodgates began to start to open about information about us. And the books that we were reading, well, the books, my cousin was saying, well, what books were you reading? Well, the books that I was reading back when I was 15, 16 years old was Donald Goines, Richard Beck, Iceberg Slim. And those novels were like bestsellers. I mean, I was reading them. And I'm not a hustler or wasn't interested in being a pimp or anything like that, although that was the style. I used to have a process. Oh, yeah. You know, my hair was straight. I had the waves, and the best people who could fix your hair were the people that went to church. The brothers, they could really hook up some hair. And you buy hats at Lewis the Hatter, and we would go to the Fox Theater and hang out. It was a lot of fun. The only thing is, I was telling my cousin is, for being from Detroit and going to Northwestern High School, I was the only student that didn't drive. My cousins would drive me here, they would drive me there, or a friend would pick me up and drive me here and drive me there. Maybe if I had driven back when I was in my teens, I'd know the Detroit better. But like, it was what it was. But I went to Northwestern High School and learned about the black experience coming in, and everybody was picking up on it. I graduated from Northwestern, and instead of going into the service, I went into the Black Panther Party. And I was a member of the Black Panther Party here in Detroit for about a year or so. We used to give out Black Panther newspapers, and we used to practice at the rifle ranges with Garans and things like that there. And everybody had legal weapons, and it was that was it. Black Panthers, they had you couldn't own an illegal weapon; it had to be legal. And I was with the party until like the defense captain, a guy named Michael Bainham, was murdered. And then my father tried his best to try and get me out of Detroit and get me back into New York. He didn't want to lose his son.
Right.
So it was a little bumpy right about that time, but a lot of things were going on.
And you said you were around 18 at this time?
Around 18, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Motown was going real strong, but you also had the psychedelic culture going on too. That's when Woodstock and a lot of the other things started turning out about that time, a little later on. Vietnam was the hot thing, and people were going in. But I didn't go that route.
What made you decide not to go to the service?
It was something I was telling you, I was reading those books by Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim, but there was another book that was on there talking about the hustling life in the city and all the rest of that. It was the autobiography of Malcolm X, and he said one saying that kind of changed everything around for me. He says, if you're willing to go overseas and fight 800 million Chinese, if you're not afraid of those odds, why are you afraid of the ones here? Mm. And I kind of sat and thought about that for a while. And it just made all of the sense in the world, and it just changed my thinking around. And I said, like, no, I don't really. And I really wanted to go into the service because I always wanted to jump out of airplanes like my uncle. I had an uncle that was a sergeant in airborne. And he used to tell me about jumping in jump boots and hooking up and jumping out the planes. I really wanted to do that. But Malcolm's statements rang true. And I didn't get a chance to jump out of my first airplane until I was like 60. It was a birthday present.
Wow.
Boy, that was fun. You talk about a leap of faith.
I can only imagine. I look forward to the day myself. So in terms of your journey into manhood, once you made a decision about not going into the service, how did that start to impact your life? What chain of events happened as you made that decision?
Well, you have to learn how to stand up for your principles. I mean, it was what I saw was wrong. What I heard. Matter of fact, in all of the Veterans Day parades and all the stuff that goes on, if you were in World War II like my father and my uncles, you get a standing ovation. But the people coming out of Vietnam during that period of time, you don't get anything. And it's almost like a mass saying that like that wasn't the right war or to get involved in. And I've seen too many people that are homeless. They're not treated that well by the VA. And they served and they put their lives on the line, but like they caught a lot of flack because of it. So I'm glad I stuck by my decision to do what I did.
Mm-hmm. So after, let's say, so now during this time, how old would you be? Maybe 20, 21? If you're moving forward from kind of the chain of events at that time?
Yeah, I guess I'd be around 21.
And so what was the influence in your life then? When did your artist, when did that set in? Being an artist and becoming an artist?
I had gotten into a fight. A gunfight. This was when I was 18. No, 19. And I got sent away. And when I got sent away, I had a lot of time on my hands. And during that time, I ran into a lot of brothers that could draw and they could paint, but they couldn't do it like I did. So they would show me little techniques and a little bit this and a little bit of that. I really got into it. In school, I was discouraged from pursuing a career in art. When I'd ask them what was wrong with my picture, it looks good, yeah, but what's wrong with it? I would never get an answer. And but there, the guys would come around and they would talk, and I had the ability to get a likeness very quick, and my drawing, my painting, that I learned while I was doing there was highly encouraged, and so I started painting a picture a night, and just to hear the raves or hear people talk. And it was a real plus, just getting that from your peers. And my art began to develop. I started doing pen and inks. I started doing a lot of different things. And then eventually, I got, when I was released, I just started pursuing that. There's a lot of in between over here, okay. But when I got out, I hooked up with this brother. His name was a Walter 5X, and he had a jewelry shop. He used to make jewelry for the Nation of Islam, the MGT and the FOI, and all that. And I did a lot of work for him. I don't think anybody ever came out of prison reformed. Some did, but that program that I joined the Nation at that time, I was reformed. I had no interest in wanting to go back to doing what I had been doing, or going back to prison or jail or anything like that. I was pretty straightforward. Anyway, I joined up with him, and in New York, and I got to know all the people. Even painted a picture of Farad Muhammad for Minister Louis Farrakhan. And my name began to start to ring, and people recognized me all over New York City, because I was the brother that walked around when he had his suit. I used to wear a flat top straw, and like a throwback to the old days. And whenever they'd see me, they'd say, like, yeah, look, that's the brother right there, yeah. And so all the brothers in the Nation, they knew me, and I knew them as well. And I continued on. Back during around that time, 1977, I had the opportunity to meet a number of people. I did pictures of Shirley Chisholm, and they lived in Brooklyn. I met Alex Haley, and I painted pictures of him and the woman who did the movie or the play. What's that? Black Girls with the Rainbow is enough. They made a movie and put Janet Jackson in it. Yeah. Okay, but with Alex Haley, I met him, and he wanted me to go to Gambia. He talked about his maternal grandfather and all that, and I did a series of paintings. It was called the Griot series, because he talking about black history and black people. The griots were like an oral tradition of history that was handed down from one person to another, and they were responsible for so many hundreds of years of history, and then they would keep adding to it. And if you wanted to know anything, the griot knew it. And so I did a series of pictures there. I did a couple of pictures for Muhammad Ali. Excuse me. And my reputation there began to start to grow as far as art was concerned. I would do pencil work. I would do oil paint. Those are the two mediums. And then I had another which was strictly imagination, where you would do like caricatures or cartoons or things like that. And I had a thing for pinups, so I would be doing all the pretty girls, and sometimes coloring them, sometimes just an outline, and started to build up my my collection. While I was in prison, I did a picture of Billie Holiday, and it's not the glamorous picture of with Lady Day with the gardenia, but it was an interesting concept because the photo was taken by a guy named Moneta Sheets, and then there's a little photograph that was in the Ebony magazine, or not Ebony, Ebony, and it was a picture of Billie Holiday taken like 10 days before she died.
Wow.
And she's got her hands pretty much like this in the picture, and she's kind of staring out, and you can see the scars on her face, and you can see the scars on her arms. But everybody that ever looked at that picture would say, what is she thinking about?
Where's that picture at?
That's that was sold. I got that. I got a couple thousand for that one. But like, I've got copies of the picture around, and because it was the first picture to really catch that move, and there's a lot of history that goes with that picture. I'll tell you about it. I did the picture. It was a black and white, and I did it in color, and it's a big picture. And I laid it out, and then I finished it in a night. And then I took it out and I put it out, so when all the guys that came out of their cells and what have you would go to get something to eat, they would see it there, and they were impressed. In fact, everybody was getting their cigarettes together because that's money there. And there was another artist there. His name was Joel Gaines, and Gaines was he was a painter. I mean, he was good. He was real good. And I asked him, what would you do? What would you do? What's wrong with this picture? And he looked at the picture and he says it's too hot. I said, what do you mean? He says it's too hot. You have no cools. In other words, the picture wasn't balanced. It just was really hot. So I said, you got to show me what you're talking about. And so he did. I took the picture to his cell, and he took a brush that had blue paint on it. He dipped the brush into the paint, and where her arms were like so, he took the paintbrush and he went up the side of the face with the paintbrush, and then he went down the arm, and then he went to the other side and he hit it. And I was standing there just looking at him with my mouth open, not knowing whether to punch him in the mouth or to just waste him right there. But I took the picture and I looked at it, and I took it back to my cell, and then I pulled the picture out of that. And when I did that, the picture was different. Now, I don't know whether he did that maliciously, because like, Gaines could paint, but he couldn't draw. Whenever he would paint, he would do a stick figure, and then he would put paint on it. Break something? Oh, okay. So he would paint, and when he would, what is that?
That's the.
Is that those phones
number.
messing up?
It's scam likely. They still call.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're fine. Sorry.
No, but he would paint these pictures, and like, I mean, you just would just sit and you would just look at it. I mean, you just stare, because he was just so talented. But anyway, I was able to pull that out, And I began to start to learn about cools and grays and how to mix the colors in such a way that it didn't imbalance the picture. And he was quite. There was another inmate. This guy, I don't know I can't remember his name. Gaines, I know his name, but this guy didn't. But he could draw, and his drawings were insane. He had a book, and when you opened the book, it looked like the person's face was coming out of the. It looked like it was coming out of the paper.
Wow.
And he would flip through it, and you'd see Isaac Hayes. You'd flip again, and you'd see Gladys Knight. You'd see the lips and how she comes all out and everything. And then the tone was really, really dynamite. He had page after page of this. And I said, well, what do you think about my drawings? And he would look at me, and he'd look at my book, and he says, your sketches are really good. He says, you've got a lot of talent. I said, yeah, but what about my drawings? I mean, what can I possibly do? He says, well, your sketches, you can really start to improve on that. And so I was starting to get annoyed because, his were drawings, and mine were sketches. And that's when he showed me the book. The difference between a drawing and a sketch is one has dimension and the other one doesn't. And so he showed me. He says, basically, it's a crosshatch. When you're doing crosshatching, you're able to pull. And he showed me how when he would lay his pencil across the paper, he would build it up. Never hard. He would never press the pencil. It was all like using a wand, just back and forth, and then in another direction. And then he would take a piece of toilet paper, and then he would go over it really light, and then he would start the process all over again, building. And so...
Wow, that's a lot of skill.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you get a chance to see roundness and all that. And so I went back and I did a drawing. I did a drawing. And then I came back and I showed it to him. I said, well, what do you think? And he never spoke to me again.
I guess that was a compliment.
And that's why you can't remember his name.
Yeah, right.
So I do want to talk about a couple of other places in your life. Let's talk about, you mentioned a story about helping people to know their rights and how important that was to you during that time of your, I'm going to say,
the Panthers, yeah.
Yeah, awakening in that time. Why was that important to know? Why do you think that was an important moment in your history, in your journey?
Well, up until that time, I never had to come in contact with the authorities or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But the Panthers were called the Vanguard. They were called the Vanguard Party. Meant that you were out front if anything went down. And it was like the proving ground. Although you were handing out newspapers, talking about Huey, free Huey, and Bobby, and all the rest of that. Yeah. When the police was trying to arrest this woman, and they were asking her these questions, and I said, you don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer any of that. You have the right. You don't have to say anything. The first thing that would happen was they would start attacking me and yelling, "Shut up! Move on about your business. It's none of your business," and just go on. And I wouldn't. And there's a price that you pay for that. You get locked up or you go. But it's a growing process. Nobody else was saying anything. I did. And it's carried over into my life. If I see two kids fighting, which I've seen them fighting on subway platforms, I'll walk over and I'll stop it when everybody is really getting ready to make bets as to who's going to win. And then it's like a mass psychology that takes over. But as soon as you step in and say something, then everybody kind of goes back to thinking again, and then it breaks up. I've done that a couple of times. And to the point where I said, I have to stop doing this.
Well, somebody somewhere sometimes has to intervene.
Yeah.
And so I think as you talked and shared with me about your journey into manhood and the influence of the Black Panther Party on helping to shape your manhood and your journey, I do want to kind of transition over to your father and his influence, because our show is really about how we put our family first. So I want to talk about one, starting off with you and your father, your relationship with your father, and then how you became a father.
Okay. Well, I was I guess I was a good kid. But I used to get my share of spankings. My papa was pretty fair about it. He told me not to do something, and then one time I was playing in the mud with my army men by a tree, by the curb, and he said, "John, you need to stop. You need to go in the house." And I said, "Okay." So then his car pulls off. So I got my army men and went back to the tree and was playing with the army men there. And then all of a sudden, this car pulls right back in front of me. And it was him. I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I got a spanking for that. Then he would say, like, okay, I'm not going to spank you today. I'm going to write this one down. But whenever I got a spanking, it was something I pretty much deserved. But like he always told me that he loved me, and he used to take me fishing with him, and he would take me and he would introduce me to different people, and he was an artist too. He did a drawing of my mom and oil painting, and it was on canvas board, and he used to keep it in the garage, and he would say, yeah, this is her. I painted this, just before, when we got married. And I'd say, well, this is great. Why don't you put it up? He says, I can't. He says, because I have to soften it. I have to soften the face. I have to do this. And I didn't understand what he was talking about until I started painting. Then I could understand what he was saying. My pops, he could cook, and he was really a really dynamite guy, and his hair was always straight. He had a process. His hair was straight, jet black, and the funny thing was, we bumped into each other when I was around 18 or 19 years old, and I had a process. I was smoking, and he had an afro and was smoking, and we looked at each other, and we just knew that those days had passed. There was I wasn't gonna beat him up or anything like that, but like that was done. And we became really good friends after that.
So now, did you see that when you said you guys bumped heads?
Yeah.
Was that like a acknowledgement that, Dad, I'm a man now, son, I recognize you as a man now? Okay.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Now with my daughter, when my daughter was born, I was there. You had the doctor that was the batter, and I was behind him. I was the catcher. And I had the gowns on and the whole Megillah. And when she was born, I was there. I witnessed the whole thing. I was the second person to hold her beside the nurse. And then I paraded around with my daughter. And the only thing that I came up with was when they wanted to name her, I had to name her immediately. I had a name for her. And her name was Nzinga Hatshepsut. Qualm.
Wow.
And because...
Big names.
Yeah.
Big names.
Yeah. Those are two African queens that ruled as kings. And I figured it, unlike the boy named Sue, you got to learn how to fight. I figured that those two power names should be able to carry her somewhere. And I just saw my daughter. She's 44 now.
Wow.
And she tries to be as tall as I am, but she's still got a few more inches.
So that moment when you became a father, what can you describe that? What did that feel like? Like when you were recognized, I am a father now. Like, what was that moment?
I felt really good. It was very powerful. I was happy that that's my daughter. And, well, one of the things is as she was coming up, I used to take her with me everywhere. I'd have her strapped to my shoulder as we'd go across the Brooklyn Bridge, and she'd be in one of those harnesses. She'd be holding onto my ears. And we'd stop at a street light, and everybody would be talking to her and waving, and she'd be smiling. And then I'd be trying to turn around and see what it was she... But like I took her with me almost all the time, and I'd comb her hair, although she wouldn't like the big Michael Jackson afro. But I used to comb it out like that, and she was a real hoot. And we had cameras in, so I would take pictures of her, and wherever I'd go and try and style her out and try and get something. Just sharing that time with her. It was really good.
Do you think your presence in her life strengthened her?
Yeah. She draws as well. She knows how to draw.
3 generations.
Yeah.
Of artists.
But like she has like a lot of loaded questions that she asks me from time to time. Like, how you like this, Daddy? Yeah. This is good. I mean, she's not a little girl at the time. She's like in her 20s. How you like this? I drew this. I said, oh, that's really good. Come on. How do you really feel about that? I said, it's great. It's great. Everything's perfect. Well, what about the shading? I said, you do shading really good. But what's wrong with it? What's going on? And I say, okay, if you just put a little bit more shade on this side, it will give it more dimension. Oh, so you didn't like it. So like when she starts asking me questions like that, I have to leave. I can't answer any other question.
So let's transition a few years beyond the birth of your daughter and into more recent times and around your marathon races. Tell us about your health and wellness journey.
Okay. Elijah Muhammad was the first one to talk in his books about how to eat to live. He made books 1 and books 2, and he talked that basically if you're going to eat anything, if you're going to eat any type of meat or something like that, it would be a squab, or I don't even know what a squab was, but anyway, he spoke about diet, and anybody that knew anything about the Nation of Islam and knew anything about the brothers, the Fruit of Islam, those brothers would walk like gods with their suits and their hair fixed and everything, and nobody said. They would rather go up against the police than to go up against a Muslim. Mm-hmm. Because they had that reputation, and their skin sparkled and they looked dynamite almost all the time. And they just had a certain panache about them. And so I started living in that image. I stopped eating what I was eating and started becoming more conscious. Elijah also said that, like, if you really did it right, you could live to be 150 years old. And I said, okay. But anyway, down the road, I ran into someone who was into that. And he had a health regimen that was pretty much a vegetarian or vegan or whatever. And I followed what he was talking about as far as foods. And we got to talking about a lot of things. And there's certain things I got rid of. Well, I don't think I've had a steak. I don't think I've had a steak in about 30 years. Wow. I haven't had any chicken in about 15.
Wow.
But the thing about it is that the image that was put out was basically that you couldn't live unless you had that. Unless you eat like that, you're not going to last any time. People can eat what they want to eat. I can't judge you on that. That's what you do is what you do. Just do some research on what it is that you are doing. And all the animals that eat all the meats and all the rest of that sort of stuff, they have short lives. But if you've ever seen an antelope or a deer or an African deer or any of them, look at the musculature. Look at a thoroughbred horse. I mean, how many steaks do they eat? A gorilla will wipe the floor with you, and they don't eat any of that.
Good points.
So,
good point.
Who am I? But then when you really investigate it, it's all about money. It's all about making it. When the Native Americans were here, they killed all the buffalo. And they didn't even eat it. They just put the image across that was rotten to eat. And you shouldn't eat it.
And now they eat it all the time.
And but they killed all them off so that they could sell their cows and their pigs and their livestock. They've got a whole livestock industry. And buffaloes are not in it. But it's there are groups that make a lot of money and they move a lot of politics and they do a lot of stuff. So you have to look beneath a lot of stuff, But like, okay, I've done close to 30 marathons.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't run them. I walked them. And excuse me, when you walk, there's I call it intentional walking. That means that you're not chilling when you're walking. Yo, man, that's chilling. You're not doing anything. But intentional walk is like the bus is getting ready to leave, and if you're not there in the next 2 minutes, you're going to miss it. So you're going to use your arms and you're going to use some effort to get there. That registers with your body as intentional. If you don't, it doesn't register with your body as intentional. And so when you're doing this on a regular basis, this burns calories. We've been taught to just become consumers and that there's no consequence for that. So we just eat. But the thing is that you have to investigate, well, what is food? What is it? Is it just something that you just put in your mouth and you chew it and you swallow it and then that's it? No, it's fuel. It's energy. And so what you want to do is you want to find the best fuel and the energy to put into you so that you have energy to go. And one of the biggest problems out there now is a lack of energy.
Yes.
And so why is it that I'm eating and I don't have any energy.
What foods do you recommend that give energy?
Well, what you want to do is, what are they doing to the foods? You have to check it out. There used to be a time that, like, anything before the 50s was pretty much organic because it wasn't sprayed. But everything after that, I'm not quoting exact dates or anything. I'm just giving a time period.
Right.
What you want to do is you want to eat as clean as possible, because once you get some of these chemicals into your bodies, they don't come out like that. They don't come out. Like, for instance, when they spray apples, it's like a petrol base. So if you take it and you rub it on your coat, all you did was just smear some of that around. So what you want to do is make sure that you wash everything and be careful of what you're eating. Because once this gets into your system, the same way it won't come off the apple, it won't come off of you. And what's the biggest problem? Generally, when you get like about 45 or 50, that's when you start realizing that, like, oh man, I can't do that anymore, like what I used to do.
Right.
What's with that? Come on, I've been doing this. Why is this happening to me? But by that time, a lot of stuff is accumulated in your system. Come on, you're smoking a cigarette. One cigarette's not going to kill you. Neither will a carton. But if you smoke them for like 10 years or so,
you got to get your chance.
Yeah. And once you get hooked really good, that's when the price go up on it. when I was smoking cigarettes, they were like 35 cents a pack.
They $10.
But you $10 a pack now. And now that you hooked really good, what you
You're
gonna
giving
do?
up $10. It's 10 bones, brother.
$10 used to be a carton.
Yeah, I know. I got my mom to quit smoking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Once they get you hooked on there, then the price, it's the same thing with the phones. All the phones was cheap. Now you get a phone, it's like, oh yeah, well, you'll be paying on this for the next 10, 15 years. Yeah.
So tell us about the water aerobics and some of the unique ideas that you had for people who can use that as an alternative to the regular exercise.
Okay. Now we're talking. Okay. A woman called me up and she asked me to sub her class. And I found out later that the water class that she wanted me to sub was a water aerobics class, a class that I don't teach. And then she hung up the phone, so I had to learn what this class was in a hurry, because I was going to be teaching that class real soon. I got a swimsuit and I went in and I watched aqua aerobics class, and I participated in it. And the people that were in the class, they know me as a trainer. They know I was in the pool. So I was watching, and when I was watching the program, there were things that came up. One of them is that the woman that was teaching the class was teaching from the deck of the pool. And she was in a different environment than the people that she was teaching. When you're in the water, you cannot move the same as you do when you're on land.
True.
And the other thing is that a lot of the people that were doing the aqua aerobics were heavy. They had issues. They had issues with knees. They had issues with hips. They had issues with feet. They had a lot of issues. And like, if I was going to teach them how to power walk, which is what I was doing when I did most of race walking when I would do the marathons, that wasn't going to work because weight is working against you. In the water, it helps you. All right, so when I decided to teach the class, I taught the class from being in the water. So whatever I showed them in the water, if I couldn't do it, they couldn't do it either.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, I would look at them, and they would be waving their hands around, and moving back and forth and what have you. But I didn't see anything happening with their legs. I didn't see them bending their legs. So basically, when I started doing my aqua fitness, in the water, you get resistance on all sides. When you push this way, you're getting resistance, and when you come this way, you're getting resistance. If you move your fingers, each finger is getting resistance as you're moving them. And that's what you go into the gym for, resistance training. And so, but the thing about it was, if you asked any of these women, do you go to the gym? Do you work out? They'll say no. Well, why not? Well, they're not going to be picking up weights and swinging them around like the brothers are doing. They're not going to do it. Can you picture your mother doing that?
Right.
Can you picture your aunts that raised you as a kid going into a gym and picking it up? No, they're not. But in the water, if you get them to do, you want to know something? This is an exercise. Well, y'all know I'm old already. Anyway, go up to your neck in water in the pool, and let's do an old dance that we used to do back during the 60s. Let's do the twist. You're pushing water. You're pushing water, and you're also rotating your shoulders as you're doing it, and you're getting resistance. Do that for 5 minutes. You just exercised. But when Chubby's, come on, baby, y'all, tears are running all down you. I was with Charles at that time, you know. And could you play the other records that he did, the twist? And before you know it, they're exercising for 20 minutes. They're exercising for 30 minutes. They're exercising for 40 minutes. And each of the classes that I do, or that I would train people to do, are like about 45 to 50 minutes. And they start screaming that, well, what happened to the time? Because you don't sweat the same in the water as you do when you're working out in the gym.
Absolutely.
And also, if you've got arthritis and you got it in the knees, or you got it here and you got it there, once you get in the water, remember the water in the pool, and this is a controlled environment. This is not outside. This is a controlled environment. Once you get in the pool is around 88 degrees or 90 degrees. That's 10 degrees lower than your body temperature. So by you getting in it, it's cooler. And isn't that what Shaq talks about in the commercials? He's shooting the basketballs and he can't get one of them in. He says, man, my shoulder hurts so bad. And then he says, then I put that icy hot on there. And then all of a sudden, every shot is shot in. Because, like, he doesn't have any pain there. And it's pretty much the same principle, but it's all over.
So, John, because we're wrapping up.
Okay.
Really?
How long have we been going? I mean, come on, we got another 2 hours to go, don't we? Come on.
I know it goes by quickly. I want to do two things. I want to, one, encourage our listeners and those who are watching today to take a look at your art.
Oh, okay.
And be inspired by some of the artwork that they will see. If they go to Instagram, they can find you at Big John, that's BIGJONQ _art. Big John Q _art. And that's on Instagram. And if you want to communicate through Instagram, please do that. If it's messages of encouragement, if you see something that you like, and you want to have that image on a T-shirt or your phone case or a bag, that's one of the things that John is open to as well. So if you want to kind of start moving in that direction and you like the art that much, or you want to print, or you want an actual a print or a postcard or whatever it is, the medium that you might want, that you reach out to him there. Another way that you can reach out to him is at bigjohnq@yahoo.com. So that's BIGJONQ, the letter Q, at yahoo.com. So those are two ways that you can find John, find his artwork, and connect with him. especially if you are you need some inspiration about your wellness. He's a wealth of information, and this is part of what he likes to do. And that he's done professionally, but because he cares about people. He cares about people who are aging. He cares about people who may find themselves with limitations that may, with some new information, may not be limitations at all. So there's opportunity in reaching out. There's opportunity in trying something new. And it's also an opportunity in being inspired by somebody's story. And so I just want to thank you, John, for being here today. Calvin did creep in a part of the way through, so he may have missed all the juicy stuff that we talked about.
No, he just talked about the juicy stuff. My question is, when your artwork that you do for any of the people that you do you do it in a ping format where it can be printed? Or is it just scanned in order to print it on a T-shirt or something?
That's what's this? Fine Art America. They do the processing there. I'm trying to get into making extra prints and that sort of thing. But these people, they do it, and it comes out pretty nice. It comes out pretty
Okay,
good.
well then we got a project.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to our viewers. I want to make sure that you, part of the conversation today really was deeply seated in family and how important it is to put your family first. That is our first teacher. Our parents are our first teachers. We applaud those parents who take that job seriously, because you are the best teacher that a child will have as they begin their lives. So we are important as parents. I want to make sure that people understand that it is important to set the values and the structure of what we want to see in our community, in our households, in our families. We set the tone for what family is. And so the more we do that and the better we do that, the better families, the stronger families, the better community, the stronger community we have. So I really want to encourage you to continue to put your family first. This is Heather Heteru. You can reach out to me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's inspired with a D. You can also reach me by phone at 313-759-7855. And also join us on EMIY. Like us, join us, follow us. You can also follow us on other platforms where you can find Encourage Me I'm Young or EMIY, EMIY, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You'll find us in all those spaces. So join us, join our movement. Keep putting your family first every day. Kelvin?
What you just said. Peace.
Peace.
Good job.